Our family garden has always been my happy place. It's where I go to get my hands dirty and connect with the earth. But, a little while back, something just felt off. The soil was tired, it was dry, crumbly, and just plain lifeless. We had been using fertilizers and store-bought fixes for years. We really thought we were helping. But honestly, it felt like we were just putting a bandage on a bigger problem. No matter what we added, our vegetables seemed to struggle. The tomatoes weren't as sweet. The greens weren't as vibrant. It was frustrating and honestly a little heartbreaking. I started to wonder if there was a better way, a more natural way. I read about how nature heals itself without any chemicals at all. That's when the idea sparked. What if we let the plants do the work? What if we could use specific plants to bring our tired soil back to life? I wanted to create a garden that was truly healthy from the ground up, one that could sustain itself. So we set up our experiment. I sectioned off our main garden into 2 big plots. One plot would be our control group. We'd keep doing what we'd always done there, with the usual store-bought soil and fertilizers. The other plot was my special project. This was the plant-powered bed. We didn't till the soil. We didn't add any chemicals. Instead, I chose a mix of plants known for their healing properties. Things like clover, vetch, and daikon radishes. These are called cover crops. Their job was to protect the soil and feed it. Getting that experimental bed ready was a simple, beautiful process. We gently loosened the very top layer of the tired soil with a garden fork. Then, we scattered our mix of cover crop seeds. We covered them with a thin layer of straw mulch to keep them moist and protected. It looked a little messy and wild compared to the neat rows of our old garden, but it felt right. It felt like we were giving the land a chance to breathe. This wasn't about forcing the garden to produce. It was about inviting nature back in to do its magic. I couldn't wait to see what would happen. The first few weeks were a true test of my patience. In the plant-powered bed, things started slowly. The clover and vetch began to sprout, creating a soft green carpet across the soil. But of course, weeds came up too. It was tempting to pull every single one. Instead, I just cut them back, leaving their roots in the ground. I learned this is part of the process. Even weeds can help protect the soil from the hot sun. Meanwhile, in our control plot, the store-bought plants we put in looked good right away. It was hard not to compare them. Then, the first real challenge hit. Pests. Tiny aphids appeared on some of the tender new growth in my experimental bed. My old instinct was to reach for a spray, but I held back. I wanted to see if the garden could fix itself. Sure enough, within a week, I saw ladybugs arriving. They were a welcome sight, and they went to work right away. It was a small miracle. The garden was creating its own balance. In the control plot, however, we had to use an organic pest spray twice. It was a clear sign that something different was happening in my wild-looking bed. After about 2 months, I decided to do a simple soil test. I wanted to see if anything was changing under the surface. The initial test had shown our soil was low in organic matter and had very few earthworms. When I dug into the plant-powered bed this time, I was amazed. The soil was darker, it held moisture better, and I counted 5 earthworms in a single shovelful. Looking at a sample under a small microscope was even more exciting. I could see tiny living things wiggling around. These were the microbes, the good bacteria and fungi that I had read so much about. At the 3-month mark, the difference between the 2 plots was stunning. The control bed, which started so strong, was beginning to look tired again. The soil was getting dry and compacted between waterings, but my experimental bed was thriving. It was a jungle of green. The cover crops were dense and lush. The soil underneath was soft and spongy when I walked on it. It felt alive. I knew we were on the right track. This wasn't just about growing plants. It was about growing a healthy, living ecosystem right in our own backyard. The science behind this is actually quite simple, and that's what I love about it. The plants I chose are special. Plants like clover pull nitrogen, a key nutrient, right out of the air and store it in their roots. When the plant dies, that nitrogen is released into the soil for other plants to use. It's a natural fertilizer. Other plants, like daikon radishes, grow deep, strong roots. These roots act like little plows. They break up hard, compacted soil, creating channels for air and water to get deep down. It's a gentle, natural way of tilling the ground without ever starting a machine. This whole system is powered by a partnership between the plant roots and tiny microbes in the soil. The plants use sunlight to make sugars. They send some of these sugars down to their roots to feed the microbes. In return, the microbes break down minerals and organic matter in the soil. they turn it into a perfect meal that the plants can easily absorb. It's a beautiful give-and-take relationship. You are not just growing plants, you are building a whole underground community, a bustling city of life that works together to create rich, fertile ground for everyone. My big turning point came on a warm afternoon about 4 months in. I was getting ready to plant our fall vegetables. In the experimental bed, it was time to cut back the cover crops. I didn't pull them out. I simply cut them at the base and left all the green leaves and stems on top of the soil. This creates a natural mulch that protects the soil and slowly breaks down into more food for the microbes. As I parted the mulch to plant a small kale seedling, I scooped up a handful of the soil underneath. It was incredible. The soil was dark, almost black, and smelled so sweet and earthy. It was nothing like the pale, dusty dirt we started with. It was full of life. It clung together in beautiful little clumps, a sign of good structure. I didn't even need a trowel. I was able to dig a hole for the seedling with just my hands. That was the moment it all clicked. The soil wasn't just dirt anymore. It was a living, breathing thing. We hadn't fixed it with chemicals. We had simply invited life back in, and life had healed it. It was a powerful lesson in trusting the process. At the end of our 6-month experiment, the results were more amazing than I could have dreamed. We sent soil samples from both plots to a lab. The numbers told the story clearly. The soil in our plant-powered bed had a 30% increase in organic matter. The nitrogen levels were perfect without us adding anything, but the real proof was in the harvest. The kale from the experimental bed was bigger, greener, and tasted so much sweeter. The carrots we planted grew straight and long, not stunted like before. We were getting more food, and it was better food. The biggest surprise, though, was how tough and resilient the new soil was. We had a week with no rain, and the Texas sun was strong. The control plot soil turned dry and cracked. We had to water it every day. But the experimental bed was different. The thick layer of mulch on top kept the soil underneath cool and moist. I only had to water it once that entire week. The soil was holding onto water like a sponge. It was taking care of itself. This meant less work for me and a healthier, happier garden, even when conditions weren't perfect. You can do this at home. It's so easy. First, choose a spot and stop tilling the soil. Just loosen the top inch. Second, scatter a mix of cover crop seeds like clover, peas, or buckwheat. You can find these online or at garden stores. Third, cover the seeds with a light layer of straw or leaves. Then, just let them grow. When you're ready to plant your vegetables, just cut the cover crops down and leave them on the soil as mulch. Plant your seedlings right through it. It's that simple. You are basically building new soil on top of your old soil. I want to invite you to join this movement. Let's stop fighting against nature in our gardens and start working with it. This method means less digging, less watering, and no more expensive chemicals. It just takes a little bit of patience and a lot of trust in the power of plants. By changing our own little patch of earth, we can create healthier spaces for our families. We can grow better food. And together, we can help heal our planet, one beautiful, thriving garden at a time. Let's get our hands dirty and grow something amazing. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button if you found this helpful.